Fanfic Corner, presented by Jennifer. Princess Rayla, Part 4. Dinner went oddly well. There were a few tense moments, like when the visitors questioned Rayla's views on territorial disputes between the Moonshadow and Earthblood elves, but she managed to answer it in a way that made Callum proud. After the meal, they split up to talk individually to people, and Rayla had to smile when she was told more than once that the visitors were sorry for judging her and they now understood the prince's choice. As the evening continued, Callum walked over to the window and looked out over the night sky. Prince Cosmondius. He turned to the speaker, recognizing the same skywing from before. Evening. Sire, I wish to speak to you about this whole situation. I'm listening. Please tell me what you have to say. Tonight you have made it very clear that you do not intend to take our threat seriously, that you still intend to marry the elf. Callum turned his gaze harder to the other. Yes. While I do understand your position, I have every intention of marrying Rayla when the time is right. So, you don't care what your people think, what they want. I know there will always be opposition to my choices. I even faced conflict from allowing humans back into Zadia. I do listen and consider everything, but this time I am doing something for myself. So the elf frowned. So, you don't care what the entirety of Zadia thinks of you. You aren't listening to me. I do care about what Zadia thinks about me, what Zadia wants and its wishes. I only wish the best for my people and the land. But this, in my love for Rayla, while I do care and listen to what you're saying, I am not going to let it influence me. He turned to the elf once more. My mother once bowed to the wishes of others when my brother was born. They did not want her to hatch him, and she listened, locked him away, and left him be, spending years miserable and alone when she could have had her second son to love. I will not let my love be controlled by the will of others. I see. Across the room, and unable to hear them, Rayla was shaking hands and acting like a true lady with the others, converting more with each word said. But suddenly she heard a scream and turned to see Callum fall to the ground while a skywing elf ran for the window, jumped through it, breaking it as he flew away. The Moonshadow ran as fast as she could in her dress to the prince, soon seeing the large bleeding wound in his side. Quickly placing her hands on it, she looked to the others. "Someone get the healer," she shouted, then reached out and grabbed a cloth from the table to stem the bleeding. Callum groaned at her actions, opening his eyes slowly. "Rayla?" "I'm here, Cal," she whispered, holding his side over the wound. "Keep still. I'm here. It's going to be all right." He grunted as she applied pressure to his side. "Didn't see that coming," he gasped, holding the wound himself. Trying to smile, Rayla moved one hand from the wound to his cheek, stroking it gently. "Stay with me, Callum. It's going to be all right." He groaned, looking up at her, but then his head rolled back and his eyes closed, just as the healers came running in, pushing everyone aside as they began to help. Rayla watched in shock as an elf worked, bandaging and tending to the wound before helping him into a stretcher with two others helped take him away. Once they were gone, Rayla tried to stand, but struggled to find the strength. The visitors around her quickly came to her aid. "Are you all right, Lady Rayla?" one asked, holding her wrist to steady her. She looked at the speaker, then down at her blood-stained dress and hands. I need to go be with him," she finally decided, hurrying out of the room. She tried to run through the corridors, but the shoes made her stumble, so she quickly kicked them off and ran barefoot to the infirmary. Upon entering, she saw not just the doctor, but Queen Zuiba who was holding her son's hand as the doctors worked on his other side. She watched for a bit, then swallowed. "Your Majesty, I... "Rayla, it is not your fault," the Queen said softly. "You mustn't blame yourself for this." "But I should have been there." "And you were. You were there when he needed you." "I should have stopped this. I'm a dragon guard. His dragon guard. And he got hurt while I was there with him." "Even a dragon guard has limits, Rayla." She turned her head away from the Queen, feeling powerless in the situation. After a bit, the doctor looked up and nodded. "He is quite lucky. Any higher and it would have caught his lungs." Is he going to be all right?" "The wound is deep. He's going to take a while to heal, and I think it was a dragon blade, so it will scar, but yes, he'll be all right." Relief flooded both of the women as the Queen looked at her unconscious son before her. "What of the one who did this?" "Escaped. Broke a window and flew away," the guard said, reaching over for Callum's cheek. "Escaped. Broke a window and flew away," the guard said, reaching over for Callum's cheek and stroking it gently. As he flickered slightly with pain, Rayla frowned. "And I'm going to hunt him down." "Rayla, I'm going after the man who did this, Your Majesty. For Callum." She turned to the Queen and nodded. "Look after him?" "Are you sure this is what Cadmondius would want?" "Right now, someone hurt my future mate, and I will not let that pass." She turned and left, storming off as fast as she could to her room. She ran to the wardrobe and pulled out a bundle. She could barely control herself as she pulled the ridiculous dress off and tossed it on the bed, hurrying to change into her assassin's clothes. "Lady Rayla, what do you think you are doing?" Madame Chatissa gasped as she walked in, seeing her pulling her boots on. "You should be... This never should have happened," she snapped, pulling a boot on the other foot. "I should have been at Callum's side protecting him, not flourishing about." She pulled her blades from a drawer where she kept them and nodded to herself. "I'm going after that elf." Rayla, you are a princess now. You can't go and..." "I'm going after him," she snapped, turning and pointing her blades at the dragoness. "And you know what? I'm tired of you pushing me around, telling me what to do and how to act and dress, and I'm tired of it. Fine, I don't care if I end up being nothing or an embarrassment. Callum loves me for being me, and I won't change that for anyone. The dragoness stared at her for a moment, then began to smirk. I was wondering when you were going to stand up for yourself. What? She gasped, confused. He simply shook her head lightly. Rayla, you need to accept who you are, now, and before all of this. But the most important part is, you shouldn't make anyone change you. The Sun Dragoness chuckled. I never wanted you to become a princess or even a lady. I wanted you to stand up for yourself, to protect who you are. You mean you were testing me? I like to think of it as creative learning, though I never wanted things to go this far. She stepped aside. Now, go get that elf who hurt our prince. With a smirk, she grabbed her bag and left to find the elf responsible. Any news? Callum asked as Evis entered his room. Skywing shook his head as he walked over to the bed with the scrolls. No, sire, and I promise, as soon as we hear, I will come and tell you. It's been 2 weeks, and we have no idea where she is. He groaned as he tried to sit up, but his wounded side throbbed painfully. I can't believe she just ran off like that. I was unconscious, and she just ran off. She wanted to get a good start on whoever did this. She'll be back soon. The prince just sighed, then nodded to the papers. Even wounded, I can't get a break. So, let's get to work. What's first? A few hours into the papers, with Cadmondius dictating what actions they should take, there was a knock at the door. Enter, he called out. An elf entered and bowed slightly. Sire, Lady Rayla has returned. Instantly, Callum sat up and pushed the papers to the side. She's back? He gasped, pushing himself up and out of the bed. He snagged a cane and used it to walk over to the door and down the hallway, ignoring the pain as he limped to the entrance to find Rayla smirking as she talked to the other guard. On the floor before them was an elf with a rope tied tightly around his middle, pinning his arms and wings to his side. The prince came over, and she turned and smirked at him. Hey! Rayla, he gasped, limping over to her, but then stopped and leaned on the walls, grabbing his side. His fiancée quickly ran over and held him up. Cal? I'm fine, he groaned, leaning on both her and the wall. But you're back. I was so worried. He glanced at her cheek and saw a dark red line across it. Your face. It's only a scratch. She smiled at him, then turned towards the elf on the floor beside her. I had to get the scumbag. The dragon turned to follow her gaze, then limped over to the elf standing over him. Tell me why. Why did you do this? Why did you attack me? The elf just glared silently at him as he knelt on the ground. The prince sighed, then looked at the other guard. Take him away. As they did, he turned to the moon shadow. Rayla, a word? Of course. With a soft smile, she walked him back to his room. How are you feeling? My side is killing me, he groaned, and I think the doctor is going to have my head for leaving the infirmary. She smiled, helping him into his bed and laying him down. You're going to be all right? I'll live. He grinned, then pulled her down to kiss him. But don't you dare run off like that again. Leaning over him, she shook her head and pulled her hair over her shoulders. Hey, no one hurts my dragon and gets away with it.